Welcome to the Ask a Cycling Coach podcast presented by TrainerRoad. Today, we're going to talk about high heart rate, why it happens in certain situations, particularly why your heart rate might be higher when you're riding outside than inside. Or maybe it's flipped for you. Let us know if you're watching this. You can tune in on YouTube, give it a thumbs up, let us know in the comments if it's different for you. We're going to talk about sweat rate, pacing for new road racers, and pacing in general. And we have Giant Bikes and the Feed's Cole Paton with us. And we're pretty stoked to have him here, joining Ivy and I, Eventum Bikes, Ivy Audrain, of course. So joining us, Cole, one of our athletes actually wrote in a question. This is how we're going to start. It says, big podcast fan, especially when you have episodes with pro riders. If you have Cole Paton on, can you run him through some hot take questions? I feel like he's going to be knocking on Keegan's door in 2023, and we don't know enough about him. This was back in 2000. This was back actually right around Leadville last year. So this is a long question that's been sitting here. I don't know why I didn't ask to have you on earlier. We had Sevilla on, your girlfriend. But we're stoked to have you. And I hope I introduced you right with Giant Bikes and the Feeds.
Yeah,
is that right?
Perfect. Yeah, no,
cool.
Thanks for having me. Stoked to be here.
Yeah. All right, some hot takes questions. First one's kind of aggressive. Sevilla could beat Cole at a technical XC race.
You know, I have no shame. Yeah, maybe. She's a beast right now. Like, she's been training so hard, and I did a few technical races recently, and I'm like, I haven't been doing enough push-ups for this. My arms, I've been riding too much gravel. So, yeah.
Gravel makes you soft.
Exactly. Yeah. No, she's on it. So I wouldn't be ashamed of it.
Good luck to Sevilla. She's been on the podcast before. If you want to find that episode, just search for Sevilla Ask a Cycling Coach podcast. You'll find it. She's racing the first World Cup this weekend, cross country race. You can watch it on GCM Plus and cheer her on. Go find her on Instagram. You can find Cole there too. Okay. Next one. VO2 max is easier than threshold. It's a hot take. How do you feel about that one, Cole?
I would have to disagree with this one. Yeah, I think so much of my training isn't VO2 anymore, and it's more of just like threshold, longer efforts. And I enjoy it way more, just kind of settle into that rhythm. VO2, you feel like your eyes are going to explode and you get that feeling in your stomach. It's like, I don't think that's easier.
Ivy, is VO2 easier for you?
I can tell I'm maturing as a rider because I agree with Cole. I think in the past I was like, no, like being uncomfortable for a long time, mildly uncomfortable is way harder, way worse than just mentally being like, okay, here we go. It's going to hurt really badly. But yeah, maybe I'm growing up a little bit. I
bet the age of the person sending this is on the younger side of average for sure. Cole, you're young as well. I'm a newly minted master's athlete, technically on the road. So at 35, but I still find VO2 max for me typically easier than threshold work. It's odd, but I also have like really high anaerobic work capacity. So, it's like always ready to chip in whenever it needs, and it makes short things a lot easier. All right, next one related to this: repeatability matters more than sustained power. I guess it kind of depends. What do you think, Cole?
Yeah, it totally depends. I mean, this is kind of like the difference between Sevilla and my training right now is like she's just training repeatability because she's doing XCO World Cup stuff, and that's like so important in that type of effort. Just being able to get on the gas, get on like out of every corner, just accelerating so hard. But for me, it's kind of the opposite. Like I don't really need as much repeatability. I just need to have that sustained power. So just totally depends on where you're racing or what's important to you.
Yeah.
Do you think that's
general,
because of
Ivy?
Is that the nature of just the kind of racing you're doing with gravel? You're just trying to like settle into longer efforts more?
Yeah. I'm doing all this endurance stuff with the Lifetime Grand Prix. So it's more about just like being able to be there in the final hour of those 6, 7, maybe 10-hour events at Unbound. Whereas like a cross-country effort is an hour and a half, and those riders are going all out from the start.
I feel like our athletes are going to hear this though and be like, okay, cool. I'm going to train like Cole and now just like only ride like low to medium to prepare for my gravel race. And I mean, you do some intensity, of course, too, right? Maybe just not as much as...
Yeah, no, definitely. I still have like a day or two a week where I'm I'm pushing it pretty dang hard and trying to just maintain that repeatability or even a little bit of VO2.
I mean, thinking about Cole, for context for people, you came from like XCO in particular. That was your focus for how many years?
I mean, all when I was a junior, when I was U23, so over like 8 years.
Yeah, and you've raced at like world championship level events, and you've raced World Cups, and you've performed at a very high level too. Just to give people context. So, yeah. No, I miss it a little bit, but there's so much more going on now. So, but it's been good. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, next one. Speed suits with pockets are better than jersey plus bib for all occasions.
I say yes. I mean, marginal gains, right? And if you have pockets, then you have everything you need. I've also just noticed that they're comfortable. They don't move around. They're always in one place, and sometimes they're even a little bit cooler. I have a speed suit from Assos, and I'd rather wear it every time.
Same here. I hope I never have to wear, like, I wear jersey and bib right now because like I'm wearing Rafa and Velocio and like a lot of different brands that I like. They're not custom kits because I just don't have custom kits right now. And I miss having those 2-in-1 skin suits so much, like the ones where the jersey is like sewn around the back and then the open isn't sewn, but it just like zips down like a normal jersey. It's way more comfortable than like a traditional speed suit where it's fully sewed together and locked together. And man, I miss that. It's way more comfortable, I find, in every circumstance. Ivy does not agree.
I just have a very specific example of when these are not great. And it's when, as a woman, if you have to go to the bathroom, if your pockets are loaded specifically, you'll like have to pull down the top of this essentially skin suit, and you're like in a bathroom, and all of a sudden your bars and flat kit and gel just like fall out of your clothes, and like the mom in the stall next to you's like, honey, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, it's all right. Like, so like they're great, and I totally agree on the comfort level of all those, but they can be tricky for sure.
It's even trickier when you're on like the floor of like when you're in a porta potty too, because then your gel's just dropped on that nasty ground. Like that's just it's like, yeah, it's pretty gross. Okay. Next one, gels. Speaking of gels are just marketed wrong. If they were called frosting or pudding, everybody would eat them all the time.
No, because I'm not buying $6 frosting. So no.
Betty Crocker. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say like all gels are, I don't know, they're not all the same. And like there's certainly ones out there that that you're paying for what you get. And yeah. Eating candy's fun and all, but it's a little different.
What do you eat? Since you're sponsored by the feed, you can pick. So what do you eat and drink on the bike?
For my gels, I'm using the Never Second ones. I mean, I don't think there's a better gel out there. And then I do kind of pick and choose when it comes to like bars or chews what flavors I like best. I really like that Martin Solid Bar. I feel like it has kind of everything you need in it, but it also tastes good. It's 40 grams of carbs, so it's pretty hefty. And then another one that I really like to train but also race with is those Cis Beta Fuel blocks. I think it's like 45 grams of carbohydrate, and in this like little condensed cube that's really easy to carry. That's like my emergency food in races. I just have a couple of those in my pockets in case I drop a bottle or I'm running behind schedule or whatever. But yeah, between those three, that's kind of what has me covered when I'm racing.
Nice. Next one, Leadville is overhyped.
I can't say anything because I haven't been there.
I disagree. I mean, I think it's huge for mountain biking in the States right now, or just marathon mountain biking in general. Leadville is like the event besides Cape Epic. And it's like everything about it is just so extreme. You're starting at 10,500 feet and you're climbing Columbine up to 13,000 feet. And it's just insane. There's no effort like it.
Yeah, agreed. It's not overhyped at all. It's like, it's a serious race. I know, because it doesn't have like rock drops and technical gnarly stuff. Some people will discount it. However, it is one of the gnarliest races you can do, and it's really cool. And it's such an achievement for anybody to finish that thing. Like it's just hard to finish, let alone finishing at any sort of fast time. It's not overhyped at all, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Cole,
I'd
can you
say,
share
like,
your? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh no, I'd just say like it can be really technical, especially like if you're trying to push for a certain time, or if you're towards the front of the race. Every descent you're going to be pushing going down, and like I can't count the amount of people that flatted on that first descent down Sugarloaf, or I guess down Powerline, just because we are carrying so much speed in the lead group. It gets really technical, and then on the other descent, like after you climb up Columbine and you feel like you're about to pass out, then you have two-way traffic, and it's super loose gravel road. So you have to be on point the whole time.
Yeah, for sure.
I was going to ask you your race plan or your pacing strategy, unless you want to keep your cards close to your chest, you know?
No, keep them close to the. No. Don't tell us, Cole. You gotta keep it a secret. Cole's gonna do really well at Leadville this year. Yeah, it stays with Cole. Secrets die with Cole. So next one, in mountain biking, superior technical ability and handling is worth a full watt per kilogram increase.
Totally depends on the course.
Yeah. I don't think it's worth the full watt kg though. That's a big difference. Like, that's a really big difference. That's like not the difference between first and 10th. That's like the difference between getting pulled after lap 1 or 2 and winning.
True.
So I don't know.
True. Yeah. I mean, it just totally depends on what mountain bike race you're talking about. Because I've definitely raced some races in Europe where it rains and you're on routes, and it's like, I can't ride this crap. Like, and then you're just going backwards. So, and the Euros are like lapping everyone. So I think it definitely depends, but yeah, that could be an exaggeration.
Yeah. I don't find like, also like if that was the case, then I think that I know that we just saw like, well, actually there was a hot take on this and we didn't really cover it, but it was that the lifetime Grand Prix riders, like the reason that the mountain bikers are dominating isn't because of technical skill, it's because of fitness. And I think that that's true, but I also don't think that there's a 1 watt kg difference between them though. And we still see that there's like a pretty decent gap. I don't think it's about handling. I think it comes down to fitness. All right, last hot take. Then we get into some questions. This is Cole. We want your opinion first, and I can give my opinion. Then Ivy can give hers. Unbound 200 should be on Ivy's calendar and documented by a film crew.
Totally agree. Yes.
It should be documented by a film crew, because I think I would go into some sort of like trance state in order just to finish it and just be spouting just the wildest stuff. So yeah, I agree. Someone needs to document it if I try to do that.
I could see you, Ivy, pulling over in a random town in Kansas, going into like a psychic reader. Trance, like, for the rest of the race.
You mean going into a random town in Kansas and being like, yo, where are the Slim Jims and cigarettes? I gotta finish.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be good fun.
Oh man.
Along those lines, I don't know if I want to put this out there.
Oh, are you gonna?
I think I want to do Unbound next year. So we'll see.
Nice.
If so,
I support you.
I don't know. Because you're going to do it with me, right, Ivy? So just like this, this hot take. So if so, let me know what you think I would finish on times. I don't know. Cole, have you done it yet? Did you do it last year?
No, this will be my first year.
Whoa,
yeah.
Nice.
What's your longest ride been?
Oh my gosh. Maybe Steamboat Gravel, like 640. So it's a big send for me.
Yeah, it'll be a big one. You get to go into, that's cool, uncharted territory. You get to find new parts of Cole.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say, I think everyone will be in a trance at the end of that one. So yeah.
Cool.
That's awesome.
All right, this first question's from Golden. Says, why is my heart rate usually higher on outdoor rides than on the trainer, even when I'm pushing fewer watts? This morning on Monday, I rode Sloan, and this is a couple weeks ago or a week ago. This morning, Monday, I rode the workout Sloan. Sloan 2 is what it's called, for 90 minutes. All intervals were between 196 and 221 watts. Across those intervals, my heart rate never got above 150 until the final interval. And the rest of the time was spent between 130 to 145 beats per minute. On Saturday, I rode to Bogus Basin in Boise. Shout out to Boise listeners. During the 100 minutes of consistent climbing, I averaged 173 watts. So that's less watts than what they maintained during that indoor workout. And I was at an average of 152 beats per minute. Shouldn't my heart rate have been lower if my power was only 86% of what I did this morning? I find this to be consistently true for me. Regardless of level of effort or distance, my heart rate is always higher outside than inside for the same power. Thanks. Ivy, have you noticed this for you? Do you have a relationship between like heart rate and inside-outside conditions, and if it's different?
No, man, because my heart rate varies so much depending upon like an extra half a cup of coffee or an extra like hour of sleep that it just totally throws me off to dig really deeply into what my heart rate could mean. And this is one of those things where athletes like Golden can kind of spiral and be like, what's wrong? Like, what am I doing wrong outside? And it's not a total one-to-one representation of the work that you're doing. And if I could guess, Golden says average watts outside were 173 for that ride. But I bet that the profile of that outside ride is much more spiky than it is for that inside super controlled setting, which is also a reason why looking at average watts doesn't necessarily represent the work that you're doing. I feel like I say that all the time on the podcast. I'm so sorry. But, that could speak to it too. Golan could be doing higher intensity surges on accident because it is really hard to ride really steady outside. And that could be contributing to their heart rate spikes too,
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Cole? Have you noticed this for yourself? Is your heart rate typically different in inside and outside conditions?
I agree with Ivy. Like it just varies so much. And I'll say I haven't been riding inside at all. So I can't even remember what my heart rate was like inside. I feel
You're
like
flying around the globe literally to be able to train.
yeah, chasing sunshine. But I don't know, like Ivy said, it's so easy to just like get caught up looking at that and then over analyzing it and just like making it more complicated than it is. But yeah, I haven't really noticed anything inside versus outside.
I have myself, and I've noticed the same thing in this case that we have Golden reporting, in the sense that like my heart rate is higher outside. I looked at like the weather that day in Boise, and it was 81 degrees Fahrenheit or 27 degrees Celsius that day. So if you were doing it in the heat of the day, that's significantly warmer than what you would have been training in inside, most likely, unless you're suffering inside without a fan or anything like that. So heat absolutely jacks heart rate up, just like Ivy mentioned, sleep, caffeine, tons of other things. You might also like I think really good point. And I didn't think of that one, Ivy, about the surging part. Like that's totally going to spike heart rate and keep it higher. Also out of the saddle versus in the saddle, like inside, you might just be sitting in the saddle, but then outside you might be getting out of the saddle. That climb to Bogus Basin isn't like just a chill climb, it's significant. So you might have been getting out of the saddle, and typically that's more inefficient for most people. Like your heart rate will go up for the same given watts, typically when you stand. It's just more muscle recruitment, more going on. You're balancing and doing more. Maybe your bike is different from inside to outside. That could change it too. But here's my theory on why it's more for me, because I could do like the same thing, same circumstances, everything else, and my heart rate's always higher outside than it is inside. And to me, I think it comes down to cognitive load. So like I'm outside, I'm like taking in way more things. Like I have my Varia radar that's telling me when a car is coming, right? And I'm like, probably there's like a nascent level of stress that's always there, thinking about like making sure I'm in the right spot on the road to be safe. And then my radar is telling me about that. There's me looking around outside and probably being like taking in things, whereas inside I'm just kind of like zoned in on what I'm looking at TrainerRoad, right? And that's like what I'm So it's really simplified. Whereas outside, there's a ton of stuff. I'm like, I'm squirreling all over the place. I'm looking like, oh, look at that rock or look at that hill or something else.
Plus, listening to Red Hot Chili Peppers probably.
Oh my gosh, no. Listening to music, not Red Hot Chili Peppers is not music. But listening to music too, and that's getting me hyped up probably. There's a lot of different things. And I looked into some studies on this. This is an old study, but it is somewhat relevant. And then I'll share a newer study. But in 94, Bax and colleagues looked at metabolic and cardiorespiratory measures of mental effort, the effects of level of difficulty in a working memory task. We'll link to this down below in the comments so you can check it out, but it's in the International Journal of Psychophysiology. Anyways, the study investigated the metabolic and cardiorespiratory responses to mental effort during that working memory task. And they basically found that as your brain worked harder, your heart rate went up. There was just a direct relationship to it. And this one has been cited and shown in a lot of different studies. Like this kind of led into also looking at like chess players and how many calories they burn during a chess match and how it's crazy because their brain is working so hard. Like our brain is a high demand engine within our bodies. Like it requires a huge amount. And in 2010, they looked at this more in the context of athletes. And they looked at this and they looked at athletes from basketball, soccer, tennis, and then they basically gave them tasks to do while they were carrying out whatever their sport was. And when they gave them mental tasks to do like addition or any sort of like keeping track of things like a puzzle or a matching thing, their heart rate went up and their rate of perceived exertion went up. And I think all of us have noticed this, like in one way or another, we can think our way to a poor performance because we're thinking too much and it kind of saps us. So my, at least from my experience, I think the cognitive load of being outside actually does make things a bit harder. That said, at the same time, it kind of makes it easier because riding inside sometimes can be tough to get like the normal inspiration or distraction you need as well sometimes. That's why you bring in music or shows or whatever else you want when you're listening to or when you're riding inside. So it's probably a bit of a balance, but that's why I think at least my heart rate is higher. And science certainly backs it up that increased cognitive load could be the case.
Oh, I was just thinking of an athlete who was experiencing this recently who saw a difference. We figured out that it was because their inside rides or inside workouts were always first thing in the morning, like super in the morning before they started their workday or everything. And anytime they got to ride outside, it was at the end of the day after their workday. And so thinking, John, about that cognitive load and how taxing it is and how that could affect your heart rate too. I mean, I know when I have to start my workout at 6 o'clock after a heavy work day, like I'm dead and my heart rate's probably wild too,
Oh yeah.
Versus waking up first thing and having everything be controlled and chilled,
Yeah, there's actually a study about that where they ran people through, and I can't remember the reference. If I'm able to find it and coming through stuff, I'll add it in here, but it looked at, it basically had people try to complete various tasks, physical and mental tasks, after going through like a really mentally demanding experience. And it would run them through that, and their performance suffered so substantially, even though they may have been an hour or two disconnected from it, like they were drained from it. So yeah, to your point, Ivy, that's kind of hard though, because, if you work and the only time to train, like, you train when you can. When do you train, Cole? During the day? Do you have like a typical time?
Yeah, I try to go at like 10 a.m. every day just to be in a routine. And always like try to get my ride done before I have anything else to do because of cognitive load. Exactly. Yeah, I've been working with a sports psychologist, and like this has actually been something I've been working on a lot, especially around races. It's so easy to like commit to things or be at the venue all day before a race, talking to people, or I don't know, pre-riding the course with people. But like every little bit of cognitive energy that you use up is gonna hurt basically your performance. Yeah. So trying to kind of like protect that energy is so important.
How do you balance that with your content creation? Because you make videos on YouTube. If people don't know, you should go check out Cole and Sevilla's YouTube channel. Look up Cole Paton, you'll find it. How do you balance that with that? Because that's not just chill work. Like that's high cognitive load sort of work too. Yeah.
No, it's super hard to find the balance. I think I'm still trying to find that balance, but I think the best thing that's happened is just like surrounding myself with people that kind of get my schedule and my boundaries. So just like my good friend Mason Elliott is helping me with content creation around races, and he just knows, he's just kind of like a fly on the wall, and that's the best way to do it. Just have someone kind of just hanging out and going on rides with me, and then we'll film some stuff as we go, but nothing too demanding. Otherwise, I'm going to be pretty tired when race day comes around.
Yeah. This is for all of us like average folks listening to this that are thinking like, well, shoot, I can only train after work. I think it's important to recognize baselines. Like our baselines may not be ideal, but they're better than the alternative, which is not training. And that's something that like you have to kind of keep in mind. Like in an ideal world, you're able to arrange your life in such a way that like if your goal is training and training above all else, that everything else falls behind that. And that may be the case for some people listening to this, it may not for others. And if it's not for you, then you just have to like go back to the basics of priorities and just think, yeah, okay, so like I might be nerfed a bit when I go into my training after work, but in the end, it's okay because work is more important than training or family or whatever else, whatever other responsibilities you have. So I guess this could be an argument for doing workouts early in the morning, but that comes with its own host of challenges. Like, doing VO2 at 6 a.m. ain't very fun. So
having to eat candy at 6:30.
Yeah.
Bummer.
Yeah. Ivy's in. Yeah. Let's go to Jeb's question. Jeb says, beginner road racer here. I signed up for my first road race while my main goals are to have fun and gain experience. I would also enjoy employing a general pacing strategy during the race. My question is, what strategy is best for me? Should I try to hang with a group at all costs? Should I follow a strict power pacing plan and just, quote, TT it? Should I do something in between, like have a power cap on the hills, but otherwise try to stay with the group? Here's the race info. And Cole, I can maybe send you a link on this, and so you can check it out too, so you can see the course profile. But in this case, our athlete, 2.5 watts per kilogram, roughly 200 pounds or 90 kilograms and 259 watt FTP, assuming that is accurate, of course, within TrainerRoad. So in this case, at that sort of like 2.85 watts per kilogram, you might not want to go off and just do something bold, like, go and try to TT it from the start. But just the same, the course, it's 40 miles and it's 4 laps on a 10-mile circuit. Cole, I just sent you the link, and we'll put the link up on screen so people can see it. It's kind of rolling with one long uphill per lap. It's 2.2 miles at 3% average, and it just kind of like fluctuates. So it's the sort of drag that kind of reveals the watt kg of everybody, but it's not going to be something that's so steep that it's going to crack people and toss them out. It's probably just going to be people will split off every lap, a few more people, unless somebody is really being aggressive on it. So that's the course. Pretty straightforward. Cole, what do you think? Beginner road racer. I know that I'm sure you've like with collegiate and everything else, you probably did some road racing, and I know you're quite familiar in the gravel side. TTing it doesn't, and just sticking to a power pacing plan doesn't seem wise to me. What do you think?
I mean, you're sacrificing so many watts that could be saved in the draft. So yeah, you don't want to blow up, but it also is going to be beneficial to hang with a strong group and then maybe recover on those sections where someone's pushing on the front. I think that there is a way that he can kind of TT while he's with the group, just kind of like, I like to call it sag climbing, where you maybe don't follow an acceleration up a super steep climb, but naturally most riders will kind of hesitate as they crest over the top of the climb. And that's a time where if you're just riding consistent power, you can a lot of times bring back the group. But it's kind of a gamble to do that, because maybe someone realizes that you're sag climbing and they hit the gas as they crest over the hill and then they're gone. So I don't want to give advice to that, but it's so much about just reading the race. And I think at the beginning it's important to hang on and try to just save energy being in that draft when you can.
And in terms of Jeb's goal of having fun and gaining experience, I think it's kind of a fool's errand to be like, how do I finish well? How do I, how can I get a good result? Especially with this kind of course, like there's probably going to be a selection or a couple that form on this big climb. And I think if it was me and it was my first race or one of my earlier races on a course like this, my only goal would be just to stay in the top, like 1/4 of the field. That would be the only thing I would recommend Jeb would focus on, so that you can do what Cole's suggesting. Like you can't do any of those things like sag climbing or being aware of what's going on in the race if you're just focusing on hanging on the back. So I think a good goal is to just try to stay in the first 1/4 of the field and be aware of how other people are moving to make sure that you stay up there without wasting a bunch of energy.
Yeah, because this course has no flat. Like looking at the profile, it's always undulating in one way or another. And as a result, you really, I think, and being new, it's just about riding relative to the other people and finding where you can fit in. One point on that too, Ivy, is what if like the first quarter of the field is just way too fast in this case? Then find the second quarter, right? And just like find your people and stick with your people and then feel out how a race unfolds. That's a super important way to go about things, and it'll help a ton. The other part of this on the TT side of things, let's just say something happens, and I don't think this would be the case, but because I bet there's going to be someone between like 3.5 and 4 watts per kg at this race. Like it's probably some like jerk junior mountain biker kid that just like has insane power, and he's going to show up at his first road race and just smash all these dads. I'm joking, not jerk. You guys are amazing. It just feels that way sometimes, and you guys destroy us. But in that case, if there's like some really, if those people aren't there and they don't show up, you might be able to put in some sort of hero effort and do that. But the main reason that I'm against that is just you'll miss out on a ton of learning. You learn a lot when you're with a group. Like you start to learn like, oh, so that's typically what a group does when it goes up and over a climb. Like Cole said, like you'll learn the fact that people chill. Like they get to the top they jam it at the bottom of the climb, and then they kind of like start to wilt a bit. And then over the top of the climb, people are like, oh, thank goodness it's over. And you'll see that very much changes in higher performing categories. It's not the same, but in the lower categories, that will happen. And you'll get to feel kind of what that's like. And you'll feel when they surge and when they don't, and how people react to things and how they chase every single attack early on, but then after that, they quit doing it. So you'll catch a lot of these little details that I feel like is way more important than the result. And new athletes, I understand to be concerned with pacing, but in the end, it's more about like be concerned with learning and like what you can grab from it. So Cole, did you find group riding like the dynamics of gravel hard for you because you had spent so much time focusing on cross-country mountain biking, or were you familiar with it from group riding or road racing so it wasn't difficult?
No, it was a huge learning curve for me. Like I felt like it took 2 years almost to just understand like the nuances of group riding and where people generally accelerate or surge, or what's a good move, what's a bad move. I feel like it's so important to just get that experience. And I'd never really ridden in many groups because I was so focused on just riding technical mountain bike trails and riding by myself or with just a couple friends. But yeah, pack dynamics are huge. Also, just watching road racing too is super helpful. Just kind of learning tactics and how kind of a pack moves, maybe how they move in winds too. Like when crosswinds start to happen, mountain bikers have no idea what to do. So
we just push harder
until
we blow up,
get dropped. So yeah, I've learned so much over the last few years of gravel racing, and there's so many gains to be made by just kind of understanding what's happening in the peloton.
What was the biggest, what's been most helpful for you? And let's all understand this under the context of Cole's figuring this out at Lifetime Grand Prix events, not like first road race, but just the same. What's been most helpful for you in riding in a group?
I mean, it sounds so basic and kind of dumb, but just like not following every acceleration. Like in a mountain bike race, it's like, if anyone accelerates, you better be on their wheel. Otherwise you're getting dropped. And that was just how I knew how to race. And just kind of being like confident in my fitness and my ability and like letting people go and then kind of like racing to my strength then when there is a section of course that suits me well. But yeah, it's easier said than done. It's kind of like a dog fetching a bone. When someone goes, you just want to go, but gotta just kind of think about it for a sec and evaluate the situation.
Yeah. So I hear when you're in a section where you have strengths, that's where you're going to look to be able to move and make attacks, because relatively speaking, you might have an advantage.
Yeah.
And then which ones do you ignore? Like, how do you have any, this is the age old question, and none of us have like the perfect answer, but are there certain signs or key tells that you look for to tell you that attack is not one to follow?
I mean, I feel like a lot of times riders will just accelerate on climbs just to kind of flex on each other, or just to test each other, or see, you know, who's riding strong, but it's not necessarily going to be a time when the race is going to split apart. It's just like they're just accelerating to accelerate and just kind of like maybe get in other riders' heads. And that's like, those are the times where I just have to kind of let it go, focus on my breathing, focus on my own pace, and just like let them do their thing. Maybe kind of chuckle a little bit, like, oh, they're blowing themselves up. Great. But yeah, it's the more you're racing in a pack, the more you realize when that's happening, and also the more you realize which riders kind of tend to do that thing. Like if I'm racing against Keegan, he's certainly not going to do a dumb acceleration on a climb. He's very calculated. But maybe some other riders would just send it just for fun, or just to try to get in other people's heads. And like, you just kind of have to know when that's going to happen. And I feel like it's just more race time.
That's got to take so much self-control to watch that happen and just not do anything about it.
Yeah, it's tough. It's like, and then sometimes you're wrong, and then you learn from it. But
whoops.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, Ivy, this is you with road racing for years, though. I mean, this is your world. Did you ever find anything that helped you with discerning whether to follow attacks or disregard them?
I mean, yeah, it was nice as a sprinter having a plan before a race, because there were a lot of times where if it was a stage with a lot of elevation gain, where I wouldn't have a great finish, the goal was clear for me to get in, get an early break. And so it's fun to be in that kind of role and follow all the dumb early moves, because one of them will stick. And so yeah, you can mess it up a lot, but as like a sprinter, when you're waiting for a result, it is hard to watch all those things like go and let them play out, and even watch an actual concerted effort break go and just know and hope and trust it's going to come back. It's super stressful, and maybe one of the reasons why racing in that role was too stressful, not fun for me, to just really sit and chill out and wait for hours and hours and hours and be like, oh, I hope it's coming back together. Like, nothing I can do, you know? So, yeah, it's hard to discern. And we and racers mess it up all the time.
Yeah, I probably overthink things quite a lot. Well, I mean, I do overthink things quite a lot, but for races, I want to figure out the course. And anytime I go and race a course, I'm thinking about the course, thinking about the people that I'm going to race. And if I don't know who they are, I'll build up whatever the typical type of like the different personalities and rider types that you come across in a race. And I will build out where I would want to attack if I was them. And I'll think through all these scenarios and try to build all of them out in my head beforehand. So then that way, when I get into the race, I don't have to do all that thinking then. And I've already decided what I'm going to do in those scenarios. Might just be simple brain me, but that works better. If I have to do the thinking in the moment, I'm going to become emotional about my thinking, and then I'm going to make a choice I regret. But if I think about it beforehand, I'll have a very clear set of understanding, like, oh yeah, of course, like they're a climber. They're going to hit really hard on this steep climb. That's okay. Being a climber, being smaller, they're going to wilt in the wind after this thing. So I'm stoked. I want to let them go, and I want to let them get a gap. So then that way they can hurt themselves, you know, and then we can sweep them up later, counter them, and leave them behind. you'll build up the same thing. Like when you see a rider that's like a bigger rider is totally going to want to hit it hard in like a roller situation or something where it's going downhill, and they can carry, for relative to their threshold, they can carry way more speed than us cutting through the wind. Right. So you kind of build out those scenarios, and then that way it makes it easy. So then I kind of have like these cards that I can play, all based on how I assume it'll go. And I'm not saying I get it right. I get it wrong most of the time, I feel like, but that is more helpful than it is damaging to me. So I continue to do it, you know?
Yeah. Do you guys ever like follow or get in any of those scenarios and be like, oh no, I don't like this, and like bail? Like, Cole, does that ever happen? Like following someone on one of those long races and being like, whoop, it's too early to be out here, or this person isn't going to be able to hang and then I'm going to be alone. What do I do? Like, what do you do?
All the time. like multiple times in every race. I feel like you just have to refocus and not panic. I feel like once you start panicking, you forget to breathe, your heart rate goes up, and it's just a recipe for disaster. So I usually just try to focus on my breath, focus on taking good, smooth lines ahead of me, carrying momentum, like reevaluating the situation. But yeah, worst thing you can do is panic.
Yeah, I agree. And you can't also think that because you made a bad move that you can't seal the fate of the rest of the race on the bad move. Like you have to, when you say like regroup and change, you have to also like become hopeful again and be like, yeah, it's okay. Like, remember that you're not the only one that made that mistake. Everyone else in that group also made the mistake. And everyone that's in the back probably already made mistakes too. So like, you know, everyone is in a situation, nobody's perfect, and you versus perfection. It's you versus everybody else who's trying to figure out what's going on. So that's something that I remind myself a lot of the time, because sometimes I'll get into like an early move or I'll chase somebody down and I'll be like, dang it, you just burnt a match. That's one less match in your match book. And I think that's a really bad way to think about it. Instead, you just need to think, okay, I chased it. Now I settle back in. That's what the race is. Somebody else has probably done the same thing already in a different circumstance, already made some sort of mistake. So, I think we have this like tendency probably to view ourselves as being uniquely disadvantaged. Like, I'm the only one that shows up with bad preparation. I'm the only one that didn't like, the breakfast isn't settling well. I don't know, insert whatever else. I had a stressful day before this. But in reality, no, you're just, that's what it is. Nobody's there with perfection, you know?
Yeah, I think it's so easy to have doubts at a race. Like, no matter what, like everyone's going to doubt something. And maybe it's even like, maybe you're doubting what is going to be like the race winning move. I mean, I've been there 100 times where it's like, I'm off the front and I'm like, there's no way. But like, you just, and in that situation, you just can't doubt yourself. You have to just start to believe. So, I mean, I guess doubts are going to happen. You just have to know that they're going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's get into Karina. I hope that's how you say your name. Karina's question: do you have benchmarks for functional range of motion, flexibility, stretching guidelines for the bike akin to the strength training benchmarks of deadlifts, squats, etc. from a while back? I'm coming from the ballet world, and I'm always on my husband to stretch. His hamstrings are tighter than banjo strings. But I'm also vaguely aware that being able to do the splits in all directions probably isn't a prerequisite for top performance. And the excess range of motion may actually get in the way of muscles, or if muscles end up spending some of their energy to stabilize joints rather than produce power. There's a disclaimer here. It says, I'm not sure I really want this topic addressed right now. My story, and I'm sticking to it, is that I would be faster on the bike if my muscles weren't having to do a lot of work to stabilize and control my range of motion. So not sure I need to learn how wrong I am. Well, at this point, Karina, like, you're 100% right, and your husband can turn off the podcast. How about that? And now we can get into the rest of the question. Flexibility. Is it like a priority? Ivy, is it, you came from volleyball into cycling, and then you've done cycling for a really long time. And like, talk about a different, I don't know if you experienced, because it's common to experience like impingements or problems with flexibility when you first get into the sport, for sure. And talk about a different sport, volleyball, into that. But is flexibility even like a big focus for you, for your training?
It totally is, because the other side of it, when I feel like I lack on stretching and mobility and flexibility, I really feel it on the bike. So my situation is far different from Karina's, where it's not like, oh no, I'm too flexible. Mine is like if I slack on it and feel like I lack mobility, my back hurts. Like I can't recruit the muscles I want to. Everything really spirals. So yes, it's important to me.
Yeah. Cole, you? I know Sevilla does a lot of, she at least shares about like her strength training routine and all the things that she does for PT. Well, how about you?
Yeah. She's really regimented. Yeah, for me, it's super important. I have this really short routine. It's only like 10 minutes, but since it's so short, I actually do it every day. And if I don't, then I totally realize, I can totally feel it in my muscles. And I have this issue with my hip. It's actually like my SI joint. And if I don't stretch, then it's going to be kind of just like not in the right position. And so it's just so important. I just always do my routine, get home from a training ride, eat some food, then stretch a little bit. And then also a little bit of mobility before I ride, especially if I'm doing hard efforts, just to kind of loosen things up.
What's that mobility work look like? And mobility is typically talking about like working through your range of motion productively, right? And breaking up any sort of impingements you'd have.
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of like some hip opening exercises, some T-spine stuff. It's really quick, like maybe 2 minutes. Just opening up my hips. That's the most important thing for me.
Yeah. I did look into science on this, Karina. And there's the bad news for you is that there's no sign that increased flexibility is detrimental to performance. So your theory on this, which I get what you mean, really like in most cases, what you find, at least what it seems like, in a great book that I can recommend on this, Becoming a Supple Leopard by Dr. Kelly Starrett. Desk Bound is another one by Dr. Kelly Starrett. They have a new book that they're just coming out with right now that talks about just like general living as well and how to handle it. They're awesome. Kelly and his wife are just amazing. But within this, like your range of motion, you probably still have, especially with ballet, you have pretty good control throughout your range of motion, I would assume. So it's not like it's just like so much flexibility and you lack control outside of that. In that case, yeah, it could be really bad and that could be harming your performance. I looked at there's the common studies that we hear referenced in 2004, so a ways back, but there was that study, Acute Effects of Static Stretching on Peak Torque in Women. And it took collegiate athletes, 17 of them, and it basically tested them and they had them run through a stretching protocol or not run through the stretching protocol. And then after that, they had them perform basically like peak torque exercises with those things where you're extending your leg and trying to create peak force. And yeah, stretching prior to the exercise did cause a decrease in torque. So in one respect, Karina, don't go out and sprint right after you stretch or something. But you being more flexible is not the same as stretching before the exercise. And that's something that's good to separate. There's tons of studies that have tried to look at this in endurance athletes as well. I shouldn't say tons. There's not that many actually. Tons in different like traditional sports. But there's no measured difference in terms of endurance performance that I could find in the literature that like being more flexible or even stretching beforehand hurts endurance performance. Only strong, powerful, fast movements like sprints or power cleans or something like that. That's absolutely where they show that stretching beforehand causes that. But long-term, just increased range of motion and flexibility, there's no downside there. I think the biggest thing though, Karina, is you have a superpower. Like your ability to not be impinged in like your range of motion, which hopefully is the case with being more flexible. I guess it's not the case all the time, but if you have that, that's a great way to avoid injury and also to help like avoid discomfort on the bike. The SI joint thing, I think, Ivy, do you struggle with that too? I think,
yeah, for sure. It's horrible. Yeah. In fact, I was just thinking I just made a note ask Cole about his SI joint.
Yeah.
Could you explain some of them actually for us? Because I bet somebody's listening to this and they're just like, they've been hoping to like be able to do some sort of movements to help with the SI joint. It may not work. Cole's not a doctor here, but Cole, what works for you? Like, what are the exercises that you found to be most helpful? And you can just describe them. I know it's probably visual and it'll be tough, but.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, okay. My basic routine, I have this little stretching tool called the Castle Flex, and it you put your heel in it. It's kind of like a hamstring calf stretch. So I start with that, laying on my back, and then stretch it for a bit, just directly overhead and then to both sides. So it kind of stretches everything in my legs. And then I'll go to like a dinner table and I'll stand. I'm going to try to explain this, but stand behind the table and then put basically my knee up on the table, kind of like flat. And that really helps stretch kind of like in the glute area and loosen up around in there. And then you kind of like lean forward into the table a little bit. Specifically my piriformis is the really tight muscle in my glute that usually causes the issues. So after I stretch a bit, then I'll just use my massage gun for a little bit and like loosen everything up. It looks super weird because it looks like I'm just hitting my butt hole almost. But like, it's like literally in that area. Like I just sit there with the massage gun for a while. And then if I'm just like laying on my back and I just kind of like move my legs side to side, usually I can get my SI joint to pop back into place. And it's like pretty much a daily thing for me. So
yeah,
that's so great. You're so good at making videos too. You should make us a little.
I know. I was gonna say I should make a how to pop the SI joint video. But
Dr. Cole.
Yeah. And I don't. It's like it's so like personal. Like I know exactly where I need to be hitting with my massage gun. I know exactly which position to stretch in, and it's just like I've just developed that over time and just like spending hours trying to figure out what feels good. And like generally, if it feels good, it's probably what you need, where you need to be stretching or where you need to be kind of loosening things up. And that's kind of how I've figured it out.
Yeah, which is great advice for our listeners, especially with back stuff, like hip stuff, shoulder stuff, the number of ways in which our bodies can pull on things. And I mean, like for you, it's piriformis and some glute stuff. And for me, it kind of is too. But for another person, it could be like for a while, I thought it was my QI muscle or something pulling on like my pelvis. And, what you're suggesting, Cole, to kind of experiment with it and see what individually is causing this stuff is so important when trying to address injury stuff. Like, of course, getting like help from a doctor to make sure there isn't like a overarching bigger issue. But from there, like you can go to PT and get massage and stuff. But you really need to kind of approach injury stuff with curiosity when it's soft tissue, really tricky stuff. It feels so individual.
It's not, it wasn't a cheap thing, but it was probably the most beneficial thing I've done. It took me like 3 years to try to figure out what would help with my knee issues that I was having.
That's right.
And I went to like I went to so many PTs, like everyone in the Reno, Tahoe area, I felt like. And then I went to Southern California, I went to Utah, I went to Bend, Oregon, like all over the place to try to find like, I just couldn't get things worked out with like IT band sort of issues that were just persistent. And I've covered what worked for me, just going to the TrainerRoad forum and look for knee pain for cyclists. And I published a huge thing and I have like pictures of the exercises that I still do all the time, every day. And it really helps with it. But it was really helpful to get a lot of different perspectives. Frustrating at the time because I'd go to some person, I'm paying them because insurance wouldn't pay for it anymore. And I'm paying them and I'm like, great, you're just telling me the same thing I've heard from somebody else. But it was really like I needed to go through that process because eventually I got this like really well-rounded perspective of knowledge about this and also perspective of how I could solve it. Not all of it was correct. Some of it was, and I was able to try and test all of it. So if you are in a situation where you're dealing with that sort of thing, and it sounds like Karina, it sounds like everything's great for you. You're just like super flexible and you just want to beat your husband on the bike. So maybe that's not like a big deal. But I bet people are listening to this and wondering if that's the case. So to recap, like you don't have to be flexible to be a good cyclist. Flexibility also doesn't seem to hurt performance, at least according to what the research currently says on the matter. But if you are going to be going in and working on like benchmarks or anything else, the original core question, I don't think that it's really important to have benchmarks like you should be able to touch your toes and hold them like back, like the fitness test that we did when we were kids. Remember those things? I don't think you have to worry about that. Instead, it's more about, am I experiencing pain and discomfort that's causing the bike to be miserable for me? Sorry.
Those were so stressful. Do you remember just like wrecking your body to see how hard forward you could lunge to reach?
Yeah, for sure. And like tearing my hamstrings just to try
why
to
were
like,
they doing this to us as kids?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And then like the mile run, man, I remember just like, that was probably like the most boxed I've ever been as a little kid trying to like go for 7-minute miles or something. So
remember the fitness gram pacer test? The beeping at you and you had to run. Yeah. Horrible. Traumatizing. Like teach me how to do my taxes. Please stop making me run to the beep. Like
do a flexed arm hang. Yeah. Flexed arm hang is not helping me in my career. Taxes are. All right. Next one's from Hayden. We have 2 questions left today. If you're listening to this right now and you're appreciating this episode, it'd be really helpful if you gave it a thumbs up, because that's how more people find out about the podcast, and that's how we keep TrainerRoad going. So it's just super helpful. So we'd appreciate it if you're finding it helpful. Hayden says, hey guys, I've been using TrainerRoad for about 2 months now. After a couple of months of listening to the podcast, I decided to give it a crack, and I've been loving it. In the first 6 weeks, my FTP went up 26 watts from 265 watts to 291 watts. That's super impressive improvement in such a short time. The same watt increase as the previous 6 months of training. So I feel better on the bike, and it has allowed me to move up a category in the local crit races. After this FTP increase, I feel like I'm noticeably sweating more on the indoor trainer. I live in Queensland, Australia, so my training room is often up to 30 degrees Celsius, about 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Yikes. And 80% humidity, so this might have some effect. Yeah, it's having an effect, dude. Like, if you're training in 86 degrees at 80% humidity, it's very much having an effect. My question focuses around sweat volume, though. While I understand that this is highly personal and changes individual to individual and in different weather conditions, is sweat volume directly tied to power output? Because producing more power means more energy burned and therefore more heat produced? Or is it more relative to relative exertion as a percentage of FTP? I.e., will you sweat twice as much at 300 watts as you will at 150 watts in the same conditions? I'm also wondering how this factors into training and race day hydration as my fitness continues to progress. Do I need to drink more as I get faster? Before we get into anything else on this, Cole, have you ever like tested your sweat rate and figured out what that is, or your sweat composition to see how much sodium you lose, or how have you approached sweating and replacing all that on the bike?
I've always been kind of like a light sweater, so it hasn't been a super pressing issue. But that being said, I'm testing it right now before Unbound, because that's going to be a really hot, humid race. So yeah, I have those like Nick sweat patches and going to start training with them pretty much every day.
Got it. So how do you approach your hydration side of things? Like, what do you take in? Because you're taking in carbs, you're burning you're not a big rider, but you still have a really high FTP. So you're burning a lot of energy. How do you make sure that you're taking in the right amount of liquid and sodium in addition to that?
Yeah, like a general rule of thumb for me is like 1 big bottle per hour. If it's going to be like a pretty normal race. If it's super hot, like 80 degrees or more, then I definitely need more. Like recently at Whiskey 50, I think I was taking in like a bottle and a half an hour. So that's 35 ounces, give or take. And yeah, sodium levels also increase when it's hotter. So I think in a normal race, like let's say a normal race is around like 60 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, then I'm trying to aim for like 800 milligrams of sodium. And for me, this is just kind of all off feel. Like I haven't really tested my sweat rate yet. So I'll get that data soon, which will be really nice. But in a hot race, then it's like over 1,000 milligrams per hour of sodium. And it's so personal. So it's like, it's hard to say. And, but yeah, as it gets warmer, more sodium. I take in sodium with my gels too, like those Never Second gels. They have 200 milligrams of sodium each. So it's not like I have to have a super salty drink mix. You're taking it in, or I'm taking it in with a mix of gels and then also drink mix.
Yeah. Ivy, how about you? What do you do for the hydration side of your nutrition?
Man, I just try to overshoot because I feel like I've gotten heat exhaustion and even heat stroke before. And for some reason, I just struggle with heat. Maybe more, I'm just a sensitive little guy. And like, I just struggle with it more than most people, it feels like. So I just really try to overshoot because for me, there's no really harm in overshooting for hydration stuff. Like there's really been nothing bad that's happened. Like maybe I have to pee once or twice more than I would normally, but like whatever, I'm not bonking. So it's great.
Sure.
And like Hayden maybe doesn't need to focus in specifically about their indoor workouts. I don't think hydration's really the answer here. If your indoor training space is 30 degrees Celsius, 86 degrees Fahrenheit, and 80% humidity. Like, I don't think, in being in an indoor sauna and just being like, more electrolytes will really help you sweat less. Or, I think getting that training space set up to be a little better ventilated and get some big old fans on you will help you a lot more than just drinking a whole bunch more electrolytes, although it won't hurt you.
Yeah. There's, to answer the question directly about like if increased power output increases sweat rate, yes, individually. Now, when you're talking about an FTP going up, that part's a little bit tougher. Like there's lots of research, like really old studies all the way back to the 70s, all the way up to ones that are more recent. Like in 2013, there was influence of body mass and body surface area on sweating sensitivity and sweating rate during exercise in the heat. This is by Taylor and colleagues. That study, and then there's also thermoregulation during exercise in the heat, strategies for maintaining health and performance. That one's from Saka and colleagues in 2011. And the first one, or that second one that I just shared by Saka, that one, and we'll link down below to that. That one can be helpful because what that does is that's going to break down more on the review side of things about like how all of this works. But you're on the right track in the sense that if you're producing more work, more heat is produced. And as a result, your body will respond to that by, in most cases, it seems like by sweating more. However, really interestingly, we recorded episode 260 and episode 221. Both of those are with Andy Blow from Precision Hydration, which I use their stuff. I think that they do a really good job of taking like a data driven approach to this. And Andy talked about how a lot of it is genetic. Certain people, like Cole, you mentioned that you've just always been like a lighter sweater. And the two main things that you're concerned with are the sweat rate. In other words, or I should say the sweat volume, how much volume of liquid you lose through your sweat. And then the second part of it is your sweat composition. And that's how much sodium you lose per volume, per unit of volume that you have. And both of those things seem to be genetically influenced, as well as something that comes from training. As people get more fit, their sweat rate typically tends to increase because their body gets more used to that workload and that heat. And then as a result, it has to sweat more. So it just builds a greater readiness to be able to sweat because it knows that working is part of its habit and part of its routine. So he covered that and covered a lot of like nuanced questions with that. The one thing to keep in mind though is if your FTP goes up, let's say, like in this case it has, and then you're sweating more as a result, yes, you're doing more work, but it might not be a direct correlation like you're pointing out in this case of basically saying like, will you sweat twice as much at 300 watts that you will at 150 watts? From person to person, no. From just in the same person, from time to time, that will also change. I notice, I don't know if all of you notice this, but when I'm really fit, my body's ready to sweat and I sweat way faster than fall coming off of it. I get on the bike, I'm just dry for a long time and my body's really uncomfortable because it's like getting warm and it doesn't know how to shed heat.
John, does that mean
is that way for you?
Does it mean I'm really fit that I pit out my shirts during the regular workday? Super fit.
Yes, it's fitness. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let's not raise our hands during the podcast. Yeah. We'd probably show that. But so it is common to do that. But man, I kind of agree on the overshooting thing. The only problem on the overshooting part is if so Alex Wild's probably a good example of this. The dude turns into a topo map, like 5 minutes into a ride with all the sodium that he sweats. He just gets caked with it. And so he loses a huge amount of volume, but then he also loses an insane amount of sodium as well per unit of volume that he sweats. So The difficulty with him in his case, being an extreme case, is the fact that he's like, well, how can I get in the amount of carbs and the amount of sodium and the amount of fluid? It suddenly becomes tricky because he's needing to replace like 2,000, 2,500 milligrams or something per hour. And that gets really, really tough. And I don't know if that's actually the case. Go ask Alex on Instagram and he'll let you know. But it can get really tricky if you're bumped up against the stops. And that's when overshooting might be hard for you. But yeah, for me, I typically shoot for like 850 to 1,000 milligrams per hour, kind of like you said, Cole. And that's what I've found really, really helps. And then, yeah, it's like at the very least, I need to be taking in 750 milliliters an hour. But in most cases, I want to be taking in closer to a liter an hour if it's hot. And if I do that the whole time and I'm taking in a bunch of carbs, that typically helps. But have you found that tricky, Cole, on balancing the carb intake and the sodium intake and the fluid intake?
Yeah. And that's where those Never Second gels just come in so handy for me because they have sodium, they have carbs. So if I'm taking those and I have sodium in my drink mix, then it's pretty easy, really. But yeah, it's made me a lot more aware of like which gels to take. And that's totally why the Never Second ones are money for me.
Mm-hmm. Are you using their frozen gels? I don't know if I'm revealing a product that has not yet been released or anything, but I saw that they're working on frozen gels.
Otter Pop Nutrition?
Basically Otter Pops.
What?
Yeah, crazy. No, actually, I haven't used them yet. But yeah, I think that they're going to be really, really good.
Yeah, they're. I want to find this study because I've only heard about this study. Matt Lieto, actually. So rides for Easton on the gravel side, but also commentator for Ironman and past really, really fast Ironman triathlete too, and just overall good dude. Matt was telling me about a study that he participated in actually, and I believe it was on the Big Island in Hawaii. And they were trying out various different methods of cooling on people, and they were testing like core temp and cooling your hands. They were basically holding onto ice packs on their aero bars. And that was like one of the most effective things to help cool that was external, which was really interesting. So that was one of them. But the most effective across the board was ingesting a frozen substance. So like slushies or Slurpees, or in this case, frozen gels that are basically like sugar Otter Pops that are like, Otter Pops with even more sugar.
I want that.
Yeah, I know, right? And don't try to just freeze your normal gels because then they won't flow. You'll just have a brick and then it like slowly melts out and it does not give you the same thing. But it's really cool to see them doing that. I think that's really smart. And that's like, if you're taking in that stuff, it cools off your core temp so much. It's quite interesting. Have you used one of those core body temp sensors or anything, Cole?
Yeah, I have one on my heart rate strap.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to watch. It's also kind of stressful when your temperature starts rising. It's like, uh-oh. But yeah, being in tune with your core temp, I think is a really good thing. And especially as we enter like these warmer months and warmer races, especially like Unbound, having those little strategies to keep yourself a little bit cooler. It's going to pay off.
Yeah. I haven't used one of those yet, and I'm curious to do it. What I've heard is that they aren't as accurate, or they aren't accurate like using an actual core temp sensor, whether that's an ingested one or whether that's like one that you're like a suppository one. Not very comfortable to ride with. I don't think you'd want to do that while you're riding. So, but the important thing, as I understand it, is the delta. And it's more about being precise instead of accurate. So like when your core temp is shifting from whatever it says it is to something else as the increase, that's when your body perceives I'm getting hot. It's not as much, your body recalibrates and like kind of does like a zero offset at like whatever it is, whatever you're feeling currently. But it's when it shifts and it goes up from whatever to whatever, that's when we sense like, oh gosh, I'm getting really hot. Clearly there is like a critical point where core temp can't get, if it gets too high, performance suffers. But have you found any correlation as to when that happens? Like when your core temp spikes up? I mean, obviously I assume if you're working harder, but I don't know if you've learned anything from using them.
Not really. I mean, one thing I've learned is like when I put like a hydration pack on, my core temp sits kind of like on my back. So it starts to get really hot. And I haven't really figured out if it's like, if I'm actually increasing or if it's that's just the hydro pack just kind of covering it and baking it a little bit more. But either way, it's definitely not allowing your back to vent. So it's kind of, that's a thing. It's a consideration to take into account, and something I've realized, like when I put that pack on, I'm going to be a little bit hotter. So it's like, yeah.
I don't know why we haven't had a hydration. Sorry, I know we're kind of drifting off here, but I don't know why we haven't had a hydration pack yet that has like if you use a USWE, I know, and other ones like that, they have like fabric that is supposed to allow airflow, and it doesn't feel like you have something really hot pressed against your back where it can't breathe. But we should have something where it actually has like a built-in cage almost. It's obviously not like metal or something that's comfortable, but that lifts it off of your back more to allow air to pass through, because you vent so much heat through your back, like a ton.
Yeah. Something I've done with the USWEs is like, it's kind of like a little, I don't know, some people are doing it, but I'll wet it down the night before and then throw it in the freezer. I'll leave my bladder out, but just get that thing ice cold. And then it just lives in the coolers until the feed zone. And then when you get it, it's just like, it's a cooling device, which is awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that's a smart move. Yeah. Ivy, you're going to say something?
Oh, I'm sure it's tricky with, all that stuff with hydration packs, trying to like raise it off of you, or more like structure or padding to get it off your back. All that stuff comes with more weight too. And I'm sure that that's stuff that, y'all have to consider too. It's tricky. It sounds just kind of crappy to have to carry a bunch of water on your back, to be honest.
You'll find out when you do Unbound next year.
Oh my gosh, no, stop.
All right. Last question from Sheldon says, I've been using TrainerRoad for a few months now. It estimated my starting FTP at 243, and I'm now up to 251. I've been riding seriously for about 2.5 years, but just this year, really taken a look into structured training. I hear a lot of stories of FTPs jumping 30, 40, even 50 watts in a few months, just like the last person talking about how they've been able to increase from 265 to 291 in just the course of 6 weeks. So yeah, like those things do happen, but it's not everybody. So don't worry, Sheldon. And they say, while mine seems to be slowly coming along, and in this case, we can see 243 to 251, and it's really, in terms of following a plan, it's over the course of about 5 weeks of training. So, which is where we're at there. So am I doing something wrong? I typically ride 3 to 4 intervals during the week, a long ride on the weekend, 2 strength training sessions. Thank you. So Sheldon, so Ivy, I linked to the career, so you can check it out there. Mm-hmm. And Sheldon, thanks for linking to that and allowing us to check this out. There's some observations here that I want to talk about. Then Cole, we're going to talk about like mistakes you've made with training, maybe with biting off more than you can chew and not realizing it until later and all that stuff. But here are my observations. So Sheldon was doing somewhere around 9 hours a week before picking up structured training. This was mostly unstructured stuff. And then once they got into structured training, they kept going at 9 hours, but the majority of that 9 hours suddenly is now structured training, but they're maintaining that 9 hours roughly. In this case, you're doing the high volume plan, which I know, Sheldon, when you select that high volume plan, you got a warning in the product. It says like, are you sure? Like this is like for a very, very small percentage of our athletes. And you're doing a lot right now. Sheldon, your name, your career name on TrainerRoad suggests that you're a dad as well. So like, you probably have a lot going on in your life and you have all this stuff and you're doing a high volume plan. And then you're adding in long weekends, long weekend rides too. And you're adding in strength sessions. And actually, I think that your assessment on your career is a bit wrong when you say I typically ride 3 to 4 intervals during the week, a long ride on the weekend, 2 strength training sessions. You also fill in with other rides too, where it's just like, noodling along or anything else like that. So you're doing all this stuff. I assume that you're a dad. I assume you have a lot going on. And then another one that's really tricky. All these things are pointing to training too much, by the way, Sheldon. Your recovery weeks have been close to the same load in terms of training load and then also in terms of hours, if not more in one case, than the rest of your training weeks. So like if you look, you can see the structured training is ramping up and then it drops off on a recovery week. But then you can see all the other riding that you do and you keep the training stress the same because on weeks when you're not training as much, you just fill it in with more activity, like a really big long ride or racing on the weekends, doing like, these lower priority races that you have on the weekends. So what I'm seeing here isn't overtraining necessarily. But boy, it's like definitely biting off a lot. Ivy, I don't know if you see anything that's that you want to point out.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just looking at this kind of riding and like to be the kind of person that can do all of this really well and have a bunch of energy to do so and keep building doesn't have a lot else going on outside of training and racing. And so focusing on, I feel like I say it all the time, I'm so sorry, but recovery and nutrition and, controlling the things that you can control to make sure you nail those workouts is already so hard at any volume. And then to do it at this volume with extra, like there's nothing wrong with this training. When Sheldon asks what they're doing wrong, it could very well be outside of training and have to do more with work-life balance, eating, resting, timing everything, feeling like you have bandwidth to actually do these workouts, because there's no problem with the workouts. Like you're crushing every workout and doing the most, like you observed, John. Sorry, Cole, you don't get to look at this. You don't have admin access. You're not allowed.
It's all good.
But when I'm looking at this too, I looked at and Cole, you may not know. Well, you probably do. Cole, you listen to the podcast lots. You probably heard about this. But with your post-workout surveys, like after you do your workout, adaptive training analyzes how you train. And then after that, it asks you the question about how that workout felt. And then if you didn't complete the workout or it felt really hard, it'll then ask you like why that happened. And in this case, looking at your surveys, you're answering them just as you would expect, like how it felt. And it seems like it's pretty on par with what it should be. So it seems like you're, for now at least, doing well. But I would definitely see alarm bells in this. I would want to take more time off, less time training during the week. I would drop down to a mid-volume plan. And then maybe that allows you to get more time to recover. Hopefully you don't just fill that time up with more like, quote, easy riding or long riding, but your long rides, like if you look at IF, like you're spending time right around tempo for the long rides. Like that's a hard effort. Like if you're finishing in some of your shorter rides that are just supposed to be easier rides, like it's almost like sweet spot level in terms of TSS, in terms of what you're accumulating. It'd be like if you went out and held tempo and sweet spot for an hour and a half. That's hard. That's not restful. Even though it's not structured, it's not restful. And typically that's coming through surges, looking at it. Tons of surges in the rides. So like, this is all really, really tiring stuff. Cole, I want to ask you, because I'm sure you have at different times, you've trained more than I have and most people listening here. And it's your job to do it. So it's probably more complicated, but when have you trained too much and how did you recognize that?
It's like the edge that I'm always walking on if I'm training, if I'm going to overtrain and maybe get sick or not. And I feel like I realize when I'm just like really tired or like have no energy, don't want to talk to anyone, like that's when I'm kind of walking that fine line. But it's so important that like if you're training really hard or if I'm training like a high volume week, then I'm also recovering just as hard. Like that's often discounted or just not talked about, is like that couch time. That's so important. And for me, it's just like literally doing nothing, like sitting on the couch, watching some TV, maybe watching like a bike race, like make you feel like you're doing something, but just like actually absorbing that work that you've done. Because you have to adapt to your workload before you can put in another session. And if that's not happening, then I just have to take a rest day and have to like cut back my hours or my intensity on the week. It's just so important that you're recovering from that work.
Yeah.
I love your warning sign of being grumpy and not wanting to talk to anyone, because that's so real.
It's so true. It's like, when I want to shut out the world entirely, that's when I'm like, okay, maybe I need to cut this back a little bit.
It's probably different for everybody too, to different extents. Like for me, I kind of have like some guidelines. So first of all, I don't do high volume plans. right now my life doesn't support it with 2 kids and a busy job and everything else. I just don't, I can't do it. So mid volume is the most I can do. And when I'm doing a mid volume training plan, it's not that my body feels like, oh gosh, every workout is so hard. It's that I know that if I was to turn it up anymore, I would train but not get any benefit from it. And eventually that would result in me getting tired. But right now I'm at a spot where like I can actually get more benefit for less because I'm turning down all the noise in my life from training to a point where I can actually have space to be able to absorb and get benefit from it. But I do have some so other than the mid-volume plan, I really think that this could be a good move for you, Sheldon, in this case. But other than that, I just wanted to share my guidelines for overtraining. So I take full rest if one, I'm feeling sick. I don't believe in the whole chest, below the chest or whatever thing or whatever rule. People say if it's below the chest, you shouldn't train. If it's above, you're fine. If I'm feeling sick, I just don't train flat out. I don't do it because life isn't going to stop when I'm sick. So I need to make something give, and training is something that I can control and I can change that. It's a bit different maybe for Cole, being a pro athlete, it's kind of more difficult because that is his work that is, changing. So it's complicated. But if I'm feeling sick, I don't train. If I'm feeling extraordinarily tired, I also just don't train. I've pushed through it a ton over the years, but now I just don't train. And then number 3, if I'm injured, I also just don't train. I take the time that I would be training and I focus it on getting better on the injury. If that's just doing research, if that's doing PT sort of exercises, if I was going to train for an hour that day, that's what I'm going to be spending. I'm going to spend an hour focusing on that, right? Now, there's other situations too. And this is when I'm willing to, and it's my rule is try the first interval or first 20 minutes and be willing to pull the plug if, number 1, I'm feeling fatigue, but not extraordinarily tired. Because like you said, Cole, I'm just kind of always tired. That's life to a certain extent. Some days I wake up and it's everything. Baby sleeps well and it's amazing, but in most cases I'm just tired. If I'm not feeling motivated to train, I tell myself, try the first interval or go through the first 20 minutes and see how you go. Because sometimes my motivation comes back once I'm on the bike and it feels more comfortable. And then I also, if I'm carrying a really high level of stress and it's probably also coinciding with not feeling motivated to train, I still, in that situation of carrying a high level of stress, I'm willing to at least give it a shot. I'm also totally willing to pull the plug. But that's kind of how I avoid, and it's not overtraining. It's probably better said under resting. And I think you've mentioned this, Ivy, or maybe it's been Hannah on the podcast, but that's how I avoid falling into those spots where I'm really getting into a hole. And for me, it looks like what you do, Sheldon. I dropped to a low volume plan all the way through the fall and the winter, and I couldn't even get faster off of a low volume plan. And it wasn't because it wasn't enough training stimulus. It was absolutely everything I could handle. It's because with a newborn and life, that's all I could tolerate as a person. Any more training stress, and I would just get so much slower. But in this case, I was training and just kind of maintaining with a low volume plan. If I would have gone up to mid volume, I would have plummeted. So try less. You might be able to get more out of less.
That's so important for folks to hear that, everyone wants to know, how do I maximize my gains? How do I get the most out of training? And more is not more if you can't sustain it. Cole has the, in theory, time and bandwidth to train an extra, 10 hours a week every week. That doesn't mean that will make him perform better or ultimately make him faster. More is not more, especially for normal folks,
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Totally.
What you said, Cole, as your training time increases, your couch time increases. That's a super important point to keep in mind.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I feel like all of your signs are exactly the same signs I have. The purpose of training is for that adaptation. And if you're not adapting, then there's no purpose. But I've learned that the hard way. And this year, especially since I'm traveling so much, taking way more rest days. I've been traveling for the last 3 weeks with race weekends, and this whole week is basically a rest week. I'm 4 days just completely relaxing, and I feel good, but I just have to create that overshoot. So I'm ready to actually absorb some training when I'm fully recovered again.
Yeah. Smart. It's the negative space side of things that you don't focus on. You focus on all the the stuff that you can see, and you don't focus on the thing that obviously is just the open room, but that open room needs to be there. So thanks for joining us, Cole. It's been awesome. Where can people catch up with you and follow you and support you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, just Cole Paton, and then also YouTube, Cole and Sevilla. Yeah, stoked to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, man. I knew that you were a podcast listener. I don't know what took so long to get you on here. It was all my fault. So I'm glad to have you on. I'm stoked to see how Cole does in the Lifetime Grand Prix. Follow him this year. It's going to be great. He's on an awesome new mountain bike from Giant. Looks really good. He's been ripping that. Their gravel bike
has
also
the coolest kit. Coolest kit.
Yeah,
sorry.
Straight up coolest kit. It is the coolest kit in the Grand Prix. Yeah, it looks really good. It's like La Vie Claire vibes. And then on top of that, the gravel bike he's riding is like one of the like best rated gravel bikes that I've seen across the board from like trusted resources like Ben Delaney and such. So he's got the equipment, got the fitness, got everything. I'm stoked, man. And it seems like things are coming together well. So go cheer on Cole. And if you want to be fast like Cole, listen to the podcast. You won't be fast like Cole if you do that, but Cole listens to the podcast all the time.
I love it.
So it's true. There we go. But tune in and share this with your friends. That's huge. It helps us. Go to TrainerRoad and sign up. That's how we keep this podcast going, of course. So if you're listening to this and you value it, that would mean the world to us. Share the podcast, rate it on whatever app you're listening to, share it on YouTube. We'll talk to you all next week. Thanks, everybody.